It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe. The force from which the sun draws its power has been loosed against those who brought war to the Far East.
2 cities, 2 bombs, and a legacy of devastation. The development of the atomic bomb and subsequent destruction of Hiroshima and Nagasaki ended the deadliest war in history, ushered in a new era of nuclear warfare, and ultimately transformed the defeated Japanese Empire into a flourishing, peaceful modern democracy. The development of the atomic bombs that were dropped on Japan in August of 1945 requires an understanding of the economic, scientific, and diplomatic efforts that facilitated the emergence of such weapons of mass destruction. The Great Depression left many countries with struggling economies and limited resources, which contributed to the start of World War II. To help America escape its poverty and temporarily pause Japan's violence in the war, the U.S. cut off their shipments of war materials to Japan. In retaliation against this act, the Japanese bombed a major U.S. military base, Pearl Harbor. Following the attack, America joined World War II.
Back in December of 1938, 2 German scientists named Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann proved Szilard's theory that a nuclear chain reaction is possible, and through the bombardment of uranium with neutrons, they discovered nuclear fission. In 1939, Albert Einstein, a scientist and Jewish refugee from Germany, sent a letter to President Roosevelt warning him that this weapon contained lethal energy and could potentially destroy a whole seaport. This message propelled America to become involved in the race of discovery against the Germans, and soon after, Roosevelt established a group called the Manhattan Project. Their mission was to create the world's first atomic bomb, and Colonel Leslie R. Groves was appointed to lead the operation. He brought together a group of scientists and military personnel from around the world, including physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, whom he selected to be the head of the physics department.
When Roosevelt suddenly died in April 1945, his vice president Harry S. Truman immediately assumed office. Truman represented America in many conversations with scientists and allied leaders from around the world. In a meeting among the interim committee, he helped make the decision to invade Japan and drop the newly developed bombs. After many weeks of planning, on July 16, 1945, the Manhattan Project dropped the world's first atomic bomb in Los Alamos, New Mexico during a test called the Trinity Test. Gadget, a plutonium bomb, dropped from an 100-foot tower and detonated over the New Mexico desert, releasing nearly 19 kilotons of nuclear energy in a mushroom-shaped cloud. Truman at the time was in a meeting in Germany with Stalin and Churchill called the Potsdam Conference. He told them about America's atomic success and eventually received China's approval to demand the unconditional surrender of Japan in a statement called the Potsdam Declaration. Truman's goal was to put an end to Japan's ability to make war. He did not seek to destroy Japanese culture, but rather to end the ongoing war.
The U.S. had previously conquered an island off the coast of Japan called Tinian. It became a major U.S. military airbase and the site for many meetings concerning where to drop these bombs, among a group called the Target Committee.
So, the initial order for the bombing, which is from late July 1945, lists 4 targets: Hiroshima, Kokura, Niigata, and Nagasaki. The reason they need to have 4 targets is, first of all, they're not planning on just using 2 bombs. And second, if there's low visibility or any kind of problem dropping the bomb on one of these targets, they need a backup.
It was officially decided that Hiroshima and Kokura, both cities with economic and militaristic importance to Japan, would be the first 2 targets. The deployment of the atomic bomb marked the beginning of a new era of nuclear warfare, drastically changing the trajectory of military history and global diplomacy.
On Monday, August 6, 1945, at approximately 2 a.m., the Enola Gay, a new B-29 Superfortress bomber specialized for this mission, took off from Tinian. The aircraft carried a 12-passenger crew led by Colonel Paul W. Tibbets. After roughly 6 hours of flying, the aircraft approached Hiroshima, and at 8:15 a.m., Little Boy, a uranium bomb, was sent plummeting down toward the city. As the crew members of the Enola Gay looked back at the enormous mushroom cloud forming over Hiroshima, co-pilot Captain Robert A. Lewis famously wrote in his log, "My God, what have we done?" The bomb had exploded some 1,500 feet above Hiroshima, and it exploded in the air with a force equivalent to almost 15,000 tons of TNT. The temperature rose to nearly 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit and produced a blinding heat and light, causing the instant vaporization of over 70,000 Japanese civilians and the destruction of 5 square miles of the city.
Just 3 days after Hiroshima was destroyed on August 9, 1945 at around 3:40 a.m., Boxcar, another B-29, flew out to its next target, carrying a plutonium bomb called Fat Man. This bomb was the same model as Gadget. Major Charles W. Sweeney piloted the aircraft and its 10-passenger crew toward their planned target, Kokura. However, as they approached the city, smoke from nearby bombings filled the air, making it very hard to see their direct target. Too late to turn back, Sweeney decided to fly to the city of Nagasaki, but the vision there was not much better, and Boxcar was running out of time. Suddenly, a clearing in the clouds opened up, allowing Boxcar a clear view of its mark, and it quickly released Fat Man at an altitude of 29,000 feet. The bomb exploded some 1,600 feet above the city, effectively destroying 3 square miles of Nagasaki and causing nearly 40,000 instantaneous deaths. Its explosion was almost 40 times the amount of Little Boy. When the bombs exploded, a chain reaction set off inside, releasing massive amounts of nuclear energy. This let out a severe heat wave with tons of nuclear radiation that vaporized everything within a mile radius. The light and radiation released from the atomic bombs were nuclear and mainly consisted of an extreme burst of gamma rays and neutrons. That light was what destroyed everything in its path, and the radiation waves caused many immediate deaths.
1 week after the bombings, on August 14, 1945, Japan surrendered. America quickly began the demilitarization and democratization of Japan and started the first draft of the Japanese Constitution in June of 1946. Article 9 serves as the most prominent aspect of this composition, as it eliminates any type of military for the Japanese. In 1950, scientists conducted many different tests on atomic bomb survivors or those who may have been affected by the radiation of the bombs. The results of the testing proved that one of the most prominent illnesses emerging from radiation exposure was cancer, or more specifically, leukemia. Testing continued until nearly 40 years after the bombing, and it was finally discovered that DNA was ionized by radiation, which caused damage to reproductive germ cells.
The quick recovery of Japan, propelled by the assistance of the U.S., laid the foundation for the well-being of their government and their emergence as a major competitor in the global economy. Japan began rapidly recovering and growing with the help of the U.S., and in addition to the Constitution, America also gave the country $2 billion to help rescue its economy. During the Korean War in the 1950s, Japan especially prospered because although it wasn't involved in the war, many countries used it as a provider of necessary war materials. Years after the bombings, the morality of nuclear weaponry continued to be a contested topic between Japan and the U.S. Had Japan not bombed Pearl Harbor, President Truman recalls that his decision to use the bombs would not have been necessary. After 10 years of living with the consequences of the first bomb, Japan, through a resolution condemning Truman's remarks, called for the United States to cease any future nuclear warfare in the name of humanity and peace.
In September of 1951, 2 major treaties were signed greatly benefiting Japan. The Security Treaty allowed the U.S. to have military bases in their country, which helped Japan's income significantly. The San Francisco Peace Treaty helped eliminate certain affiliations between Japan and other countries, ending the Allied rule over Japan throughout World War II and marking the end of their imperial era. By the 1960s, Japan had become the 3rd largest trade power in the world, and in the 1970s they were dubbed the leading manufacturer of electronics and a major competitor in the automobile industry. When Hirohito died in 1989, Japan underwent many political changes which greatly deteriorated its relationship with America. The country bounced between the leadership of the Liberal Democratic Party and the Democratic Party for over 20 years. When the LDP won the election in 2012, they began to help restore the country in its relationship with America. The potential of a Japanese military arose in several different discussions due to concerns about the Chinese and North Korean nuclear programs, but ultimately it was decided that the country should remain non-militant.
Following World War II, the country established a more structured form of leadership, helping them develop into an expansive and successful country. Japan has not been involved in any war since World War II and remains a peaceful country with thriving industries and a strong relationship with America. The ties between Japan and the U.S. have been strengthened despite the droppings of Little Boy and Fat Man, which ended the bloodiest war in history. These events signified the dawn of a new era led by the threat of nuclear war, while enabling Japan to become one of the world's most successful nations with a prospering industrial and cultural reputation.